Hello and welcome to the Crystalline Complete Cleanse. I'm your host, Joe Cheetle. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to guide you through a complete root cause detox. The first lesson, I'm calling this lesson 0 because whether or not you carry on with the cleanse, do any of the protocols, or make any of the other adjustments in your life, this is probably the most important, the biggest needle mover, and it's foundational for all of our other techniques. So, let's jump into it. Minerals. The functions of minerals inside our bodies is very, very vast, and most people are walking around at a 40% deficiency in all minerals. Here on this slide, we're going to have a little quick look at the macro minerals, the trace minerals, and the ultra trace minerals. Feel free to pause each slide, have a little read through. I'm not going to read them out to you. So here we've got the macro minerals. Here we have the trace minerals. The last two I couldn't fit on the last slide. And here are the ultra trace minerals. So as you can see, minerals are vital for the function of our bodies. Many people ask me, why do I need to supplement with more minerals then? I eat enough food, I eat healthy, I eat clean, I eat organic. I just get it from my food. Well, unfortunately, modern day agriculture has led to a depletion of our soils where our food gets the minerals from. Things like tilling, herbicides, pesticides, rodenticides, fungicides, lack of crop rotation, GMOs that are designed specifically to work with things like glyphosate, which we're going to go in a little bit deeper down in the course. But all these things over the last 50 years have essentially led to our food being depleted in trace minerals, macro minerals, and these ultra trace minerals. Most common fertilizers you will see are just NPK and not the wide plethora you've seen before that we need. So not restoring soil quality post-harvest year on year has led to poor, inferior soil quality. Research has shown that you need about 20 modern day lettuces to equivalent of one lettuce of our great-grandparents and about 7 apples to 1 apple. This is ridiculous. Another factor for the lack of minerals is we no longer cook with fire. Traditionally, we would have had hardwood where trees would have sequestered minerals from the ground. We would chop that, cook with that, and then once we were finished, we would put the food scraps and the charcoal back onto our garden beds, thus restoring the minerals in our food. So lacking in one or more of these minerals leads to a cascade of problems in all areas of our bodies. In this little short overview presentation, we're going to look at plant-based minerals, why they're superior. We're going to look at things like silage, and we're going to have a little look at naturally occurring salt-based minerals. The plant-based minerals we're going to look at particularly come from a black crystalline substance known as humate. Humate is the result of plant material that has been decomposed over thousands of years with the aid of bacteria. The best sources come from underground freshwater plant sources. Ideally, these are then cold purified, water extracted, no high heat, pressure or chemical solvents used in their processing. 1, to not add any more toxins to what we're consuming, and 2, to keep these natural compounds in their bioavailable states. So good sources of these will have an abundance of all macro minerals, trace minerals, and micro minerals in perfect balance. Consuming this is the backbone of the Crystalline Complete Cleanse, as you will see for a variety of reasons. It is the single biggest needle mover I have found. If you do nothing else, yet just increasing the intake of these, you're off to a good start. The average person is operating on about 40% reduced minerals of their daily requirement. So the great thing about these humic and fulvic compounds is not only that they provide minerals, they provide full system detoxification support for the entire human body. The fulvic acid component provides the intercellular detoxification, and while the humic component is an exceptional chelator, supporting the remediation and removal of heavy metals and environmental toxins like glyphosate that we mentioned before. Also, nanoplastics, which is a big problem today, as many people know. So humic is a powerful binder, gathering free radicals, bio waste, and other elements that the body needs to eliminate in order for us to flourish. While neither the fulvic or the humic will kill off parasites in the body, they will gather and remove the detritus, the biotoxins associated with parasite proliferation. It helps bind to these die-off bind products once we start killing them. And so this makes it an incredibly useful tool for the entire process of parasite remediation. The fulvic acid component is a very small and incredible molecule. Fulvic acid plays a key role in maintaining electrochemical balance within the cells, which is central to its biological activity. Due to its ionic nature and small molecular size, fulvic acid can easily cross cell membranes and interact with charged particles, ions, inside the cell. It acts as a natural electrolyte, functioning as both a proton donor and receptor, enabling it to participate in redox reactions essential for cellular metabolism. This dynamic behavior allows fulvic acid to shift polarity in response to the cell's internal environment, neutralizing excess charges, balancing pH, and facilitating the transport of nutrients and removal of toxins. Its ability to adapt and change state helps restore cellular homeostasis, particularly under stress conditions like oxidative damage or mineral deficiency. This adaptability is the core reason why fulvic acid is considered vital for cellular function, nutrient absorption, and detoxification. The humate component is a larger molecule, mineral dense. One of the many things it does, it helps support the gut barrier by reinforcing the intestinal lining and enhancing the function of the tight junction proteins. These are critical for maintaining a strong barrier between our gut and our bloodstream. We don't want undigested proteins going through cracks in the gut, causing inflammation and often being misdiagnosed as autoimmune diseases. This protective effect essentially helps us prevent leaky gut by reducing the translocation of harmful substances like bacterial lipopolysaccharides into the circulation. They didn't experiment with adding fulvic acid to pig feed. They did nothing to the amount of food they were giving to the pigs, just adding fulvic acid. And they noticed that they had an improved meat quality, so it contributed to a more favorable muscle to fat ratio. Humate was used in the ground post-Chernobyl to try and encourage the fertility back into the ground. They noticed that the plant beds that were using the humate, the plant's restoration was a lot quicker. Interesting to note. These minerals have already been processed by the plants and bacteria and are highly absorbable into the human body. We're going to be going deeper on the subject of chelation, binding, glyphosate further in the course. So looking at the COAs, the Certificate of Authenticity, basically testing for all the minerals and metals, heavy metals, toxins, stuff like that, on a good quality fulvic and humate product will show some of the so-called dangerous heavy metals that we are trying to eliminate. However, it is important to note that these heavy metals are inert, bound tightly into the humate. And essentially what's happening is the fulvic acid goes into the cell membrane, delivering minerals to our mitochondria that support this ATP production. It changes polarity and takes out heavier metals, and we excrete them. Next, we're going to have a little look at something similar but different, often mistakenly referred to as a mineral supplement, which it is, but it does contain other compounds that make it very different. Silogite, very popular, doing the rounds on social media, as I'm sure you've all probably been advertised at this point. Silogite also contains fulvic and humic acids, although in lower quantity than the liquid sources of plant minerals I discussed before. So silogite contains other things other than just minerals. The main component of these would be something known as DBPs, dibenzo A prions. These specifically support adenosine triphosphate production, ATP, which is the cell's energy currency, if you will, created in our mitochondria, which every cell has. There's strong evidence from silogite's use showing support of hormone and metabolic benefits. There's also strong evidence for an adaptogenic support. Adaptogens are just natural substances, typically plant-based or compounds, that help the body resist and adapt to various stresses, whether that be physical, chemical, biological, or emotional, while promoting overall balance and resilience. These DBPs reduce oxidization of the mitochondria. essentially stop it deteriorating. And the way it supports ATP production is through increasing efficiency rather than stimulant effect like coffee, for example. The fulvic acid in Shilajit is naturally complexed with these DBPs and transports them directly into the cell. It also contains things like trace amino acids and nitrogenous compounds that are potential signaling cofactors. We're going to go on to naturally occurring salts. So before we get into that, just to mention, you got to cut out the iodized table salt. This really is no good. If you are using this, it's imperative that you replace it with a naturally occurring sea salt or Himalayan salt if you need, but ideally from a clean water source that has been tested for heavy metals and microplastics. This form of sodium chloride is one of the most widely used industrial compounds across the world, primarily due to its role as a raw key material in the chemical industry, and it is usually synthetically derived. Checking the ingredients is one thing, but something you're going to hear a lot about throughout this course is quality, and I can't stress that enough, which we are going to expand on. I'm going to give more examples in further lessons. These natural salts have minerals bound to the salt, and they have to dissociate into free ions in our gut. This is dependent on stomach acid, transporter saturation. They compete with other minerals and are less absorbed. These are not optimal for us to restore our complete mineral balance, as they can irritate the gut and the kidneys. It's okay in small amounts in drinking water to sort of aid in the electrical charge of the water and hydration, but it's highly unlikely it's actually going to restore these depleted minerals that we're suffering from at higher doses, which is what we need. Just a side note, most electrolyte packets are just synthetic and not full spectrum, and isolated minerals often upset the mineral balancing pairs. And just another side note on isolated mineral supplements from the shop like these are essentially garbage, basically. They're derived from rocks, often not even absorbed and just peed out. They cause more harm than good along the way. Or the iron is another good example. When you see some commercial cereal products saying fortified with iron, this isn't actually the heme iron that your body needs. This is literally iron filing shavings. I'm not making that up. Okay, moving on. Brands I recommend. Beam Minerals, great quality. I use Vital Earth Minerals. I'm not affiliated with any of these products I'm mentioning. I just only recommend ones I would use for myself, my friends, and my family. If I am affiliated with any of the products in this course, I will let you know. But even if I am, it's only because it's something that I feel is the best and it's something I would use. If you don't want to use these ones, make sure you look for a good quality cold water, non-chemically extracted from freshwater plant deposits underground that have not been exposed to modern pollutants. With regards to Shilajit, there is a lot of counterfeit products on the market. Diligence is required. Pure Black is a brand that I recommend. It is very good quality. It's what I first started using when I discovered Shilajit in 2019, although it is expensive. Another one I recommend is Primal Alchemy Shilajit. It's very powerful. And if anyone's interested, I have a friend who was one of the first people to start selling Shilajit in the UK, which is where I get mine from. And he posts it to any country I've been in. With regards to naturally occurring salts, I recommend sea salts for cooking. You can find ones tested for heavy metals and microplastics and other modern sea pollutants. For my drinking water, I use something by a company called Ancient Lakes. It's a naturally magnesium salt rich lake bread in Lake Deborah in Australia. I add a little bit of that to the drinking water. As mentioned before, I don't recommend fulvic concentrates. I don't recommend powdered Shilajit. I don't recommend synthetic minerals, isolates. Another thing you want to watch out for and not fall prey to is good marketing. It looks very nice, but if you actually look at the fulvic acid content, a simple mathematical equation, which I can put in the show notes below. So as you know, fulvic acid carries minerals into the cell, but obviously there isn't an infinite amount of minerals it can take. So often you can see on these supplements, they got the nice branding, they got the nice imaging, all looks very cool and trendy. But if you actually look at the fulvic acid content of this mineral supplement, you'll see that it doesn't actually contain enough fulvic acid to, let alone shuttle the trace minerals in. It doesn't even have enough to shuttle the macro minerals in. So make sure you're looking for something with a higher content of fulvic acid, like the ones I recommend. So a typical day would be, upon rising, having a dose of the plant-based minerals in a large glass of water, a cup of Silogit in some hot water at some point in the morning. Then I would add some natural magnesium salts to add to clean drinking water to sip throughout the day. This high intake of minerals is the biggest needle mover, and it is the backbone of any competent detox program. The cascade of effects from diligent intake of these plant-based and natural minerals on a daily basis will help everything. Now it's time to remineralize. Through the rest of the Crystalline Complete Cleanse, it is going to be mentioned a lot. You'll probably get bored of me saying it, so let's get to it now. I'm excited to guide you through this and go further with the Crystalline Complete Cleanse.